150 people die when the Twin Towers collapse. 184 people die when a plane was flown into the Pentagon. 40 die in an open field in Pennsylvania. Heroes lose their lives trying to stop another terrorist attack. Good evening, I'm Eric Singer.
And I'm Heather Skold. Thanks for joining us for News Channel 13 at 5. 6 years have passed since the worst terrorist attack on U.S. soil. It's a day Americans will never forget.
Kate Baldwin joins us live from New York City tonight at Ground Zero with the latest on how people are remembering September 11th, 6 years later. She's at Ground Zero with more on the memories.
It's a day to remember. It's a day to honor those who lost their lives 6 years ago. All of today's events cast against a somber backdrop of gray skies. 4 moments of silence in New York. 2 to mark when the jetliners hit the Twin Towers. 2 more to mark when they collapsed.
We feel today, as we felt then, that we belong to one another. Not because we are inhabitants of the same city or same country, but because we are all part of the same human story.
Emotional tributes in New York, Washington, and Pennsylvania to honor the nearly 3,000 people killed that day.
While time has the ability to heal wounds, to soothe anguished spirits, it can never fully dull the pain.
Allison and Jeff Crowther know that pain all too well.
I weep every day.
Their son Wells worked on the 104th floor of the World Trade Center's South Tower. For months, the Crowthers knew little about how Wells died. Then they began hearing stories of a hero, identified by something Wells carried with him since childhood.
It's this mysterious man in a red bandana who was calling out orders and saying, "Only help those who you can help and follow me, I know the way." And I read that and I said, "Wells, I found you."
Wells stayed behind, leading, even carrying others to safety.
When they're asked what made you follow him, what made you listen to him, they said he was very, very much in command. It was his voice, it was his eyes. We just knew we could follow him, and that was our Wells.
Wells Crowther, one of hundreds of heroes honored this Tuesday, September 11th. Live in New York, I'm Kate Baldwin. Now back to you.
I know she's very proud of us. She's looking down and smiling. Not only Jan, but the other 183 victims are looking down and smiling.
The families of those who died at the Pentagon that day are remembering their loved ones today. A memorial at the Pentagon is set to open next year. The $22 million project was organized by many of the family members. The Pentagon Memorial Park will be within view of where American Airlines Flight 77 struck the Pentagon 6 years ago today. 184 people lost their lives. And in Pennsylvania, the bells tolled for the 40 passengers and crew who died when United Flight 93 was hijacked. The flight never reached its target, which was believed to be in Washington, D.C. Instead, passengers fought back, and the plane crashed into a field. The co-pilot of the flight was Jason Dahl. He was from Kincarroll Ranch, which is just southwest of Denver.
And here in southern Colorado, we are also remembering the victims of the September 11th attacks. At Mitchell High School in Colorado Springs, there is a 9/11 link that will never be broken. A 1975 graduate was on board one of the planes that hit the Trade Center towers. And this morning, students and staff remember Mrs. Catherine Yancey Labori.
I think of their courage. I think of the compassion that they had for the victims of 9/11.
Pueblo firefighters remember their own, and this morning the bells chime for 343 New York City firefighters killed during search and rescue operations of the Twin Towers. The feeling among fire crews, lest we forget. And he's a chef by trade, but every year since 9/11, Chris Seals' labor has been carrying a giant American flag on this day. Seals tells us he does it to support America and the troops. He was out at 6 this morning and plans to stay until 6 tonight. And you might have been one of the many people honking to show support for Seals' efforts. And protesters used this anniversary to push the anti-war message. A handful of people at Fountain Academy. And one of the protesters tells us his point is simple. He's tired of America's war machine.
We're for peaceful relations throughout the world and not being the world's bully.
Abdu says the corner of Fountain and Academy was picked for this protest because he says the surrounding buildings are of companies linked to supporting the war machine.
Across the country, Americans chose many different ways to commemorate the September 11th attacks that happened 6 years ago. Among the actions in Colorado Springs was a demonstration by peace activists. They gathered at a busy intersection close to the local offices of defense contractors Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, and Northrop Grumman. Colorado College student Jamie Stevenson reports.
Demonstrators included members of the Pikes Peak Justice and Peace Commission, the Bookman Group, and individuals encouraging peace on a personal and international level. Mark Lewis of Colorado Springs Action Alliance says he's correlating September 11th with the war in Iraq at this intersection.
The excuse has been used of 9/11 for the war in Iraq. And first we want to separate those two issues, but we also want to draw attention to the fact that nobody is enjoying the war in Iraq, but there are a lot of people that are making billions and billions of dollars off of it. And all of them in these buildings on this corner are some of the worst contractors that are making tons of money.
Not everyone in the city agrees with Lewis's assessment. In comments posted to the Colorado Springs Gazette's webpage Tuesday, many readers criticized peace activists, calling the demonstrators selfish and unpatriotic for choosing this day to protest. Some said 9/11 is a day for silence, raising flags, and abstaining from the blame game. Lewis says they may not understand where he and his fellow demonstrators are coming from.
9/11 is a national day of mourning, and it is for us too. We're peace activists.
Lewis says some of the companies nearby sent vans to keep an eye on demonstrators who stood on the public sidewalk on the periphery of their property. He says they saw police cars check them out too, but that they didn't interfere with demonstrators. Remembering past conflict between police and parade demonstrators in February 2003 near Peterson Air Force Base and last spring's St. Patrick's Day parade in Colorado Springs, demonstrators say they approached this street-side stance with both hesitation and deference. They waved two fingers in peace signs at cars that honked in response to the signs and banners they held. The response from drivers varied.
Oh, it's almost all positive. There's an occasional middle finger or something, occasionally something shouted out the window, but, you know, other than the 4 eggs, there hasn't been any attempt to do anything.
Lewis says more than 20 people participated in the demonstration. For KRCC News, I'm Jamie Stevenson.